All right, I'm back. Uh, I am back. I have no idea what happened there. El Chico, what's up, my friend? How's the mic? I'm gonna have to fix this. I'm gonna light some sage really quick. Hello, hello, everyone. Thanks for coming back. My something. There was a slow connection, technical difficulties. About to light some sage, and we can continue on with our conversation. This is my technique. I give gratitude to the sage for what it does. I just feel called to do it right now. Very nice. Jashawn, thanks for coming back. Little technical difficulties, but we're back. We're here again. And I definitely want to continue that chat that we were all having. I took a picture of the chat. But yeah, so as I was saying, when it comes to any plant medicine, anything, even the sage, right? When we honor it, we give it attention, we give it awareness, we honor the consciousness within it, we honor what it does for us, you know, we begin to receive on levels that we never thought we could. We begin to open up channels we never thought we could, simply because of the power of awareness, the power of our energy, the power of our attention, and just the simplest things, enlightenment is intimacy with all things. Enlightenment is intimacy with all things, right? I'm not speaking about this idea of being this very enlightened individual who is never bothered by anything. I'm just speaking about a state, just a state of enlightenment. I want to get out the mind's idea of what enlightenment might mean to really help to dissolve those ideas of desire that we need to be somewhere other than we are right now. By enlightenment is intimacy with all things. It's even with this moment. It's even with the things you do, the things you say, the people you're with. Often we find ourselves, especially in this awakening process, we find ourselves alone, right? We begin to shed, we're shedding, and our old self has died, a new self has arisen, and we begin, and along with those old aspects of us, old patterns, the people that we're around, they're either not in our lives or we're not with them anymore. And we begin to find ourselves in spaces in our where we're alone, right? But alone doesn't need to mean lonely, right? Lonely and solitude. The real difference is your state of being. The real difference is your thoughts, your feelings, your thoughts and your feelings about that situation. Loneliness is this feeling of separateness, this very deep, being deep in this illusion of separateness where we feel so alone, where we feel like we are not co-creating with the universe, where where we're not one with all, where we cannot step into a state of fulfillment, a state of just simply peace, or just simply a state of contentment in the moment, where solitude is an awareness of our connectedness with being. There's a higher awareness there, a heightened consciousness there, where we are grateful in that moment because there are no distractions. There is nothing to distract us. so we can fully come into the self. We can fully be here with ourselves, and we begin to feel and know that we are not separate, right? So I even think about those moments when, I feel feelings of anxiety. You know, a big reason why I feel as though, I am a teacher of presence. The present moment is what I teach as a guide and a mentor, as a student, right? Because that has been the most effective way to help me approach these feelings of anxiety in the healthiest way possible and the most consistent way possible. And the more we step into this practice of non-reactivity, the more we step into this practice of awareness, being aware that we are aware, right? Having doing little ceremonies here and there to develop an intimacy with each moment. See, the more we do that, it pours into every aspect of our lives, not in just this. We might come here, right? You might come into Here Now live streams and you might have a question about one aspect of your life. And then you might receive an answer that gives you an answer to other aspects of your life because they all pour into one another. So much of our healing will always come back down to the present moment. When we talk about listening to the inner voice, awakening intuition, right? That means we must be present with ourselves. It means we must be present with our thoughts and our emotions because often with the inner voice, we must be in connection with the body because our body is sending us messages too, right? And when we are honoring the messages that our body sends us, we begin to develop a very deep connection with the inner voice, which is essentially you. So there's this emerging of awareness where it's like, that's me. It's not like me and my inner voice. It's literally you. It's just speaking to you. Yes, everything really is interconnected to the T. It's crazy. Indeed. Like the more and more you come into, the more and more you really take advantage of those moments when you are alone and you acknowledge it as solitude and not loneliness. You give yourself the opportunity to witness the interconnectedness, right? Everything is interconnected, interdependent, right? Each each situation that happens, right, it is a cause and effect of one another, right? Something happens, for you to get something you wanted to receive, there had to be five other events that manifested for that to happen, you know? And so, yeah, so anyway, so coming back, I'm trying to see how I was tying that together. So coming back to the present moment, coming back to the self, um, we recognize that during our healing process, the most simplest path you can take is stepping into the present moment and being here now. And often all that takes is a little bit of space. That's it, right? So it's like even as I speak, I'm becoming more aware of my speaking. There's space in between the words that I speak. And within that space is awareness. That's consciousness. It's just space, right? Space is the space where all of these material things that we see arise, right? All of this in dense form, right? You can see, think of a large field and there's nothing there, just a large field, right? And there's space. Obviously, okay, there's grass there, maybe there's trees, but to give the best example that I can, because there really aren't truly any words that describe consciousness itself. They're just pointing to it. That's it. It's just pointing, right? The Tao, part of the Tao, it says that, if you're explaining it with words, that's not it. The only thing we can do is point to it because words cannot grasp it. This is why this is why the practice of non-reactivity, right? It's all about our level of consciousness and awareness. And that is where we, whatever our experience is in that moment, what have you, that's when it arises, right? And so basically, so going back to this, as I speak, just acknowledging the space, the gaps of space between the words that I speak, the gaps of space between the sentences, right? More and more that takes you out of your mind, right? Out of all of these thoughts. And you're here fully allowing yourself and opening up to the nature of this reality, the interconnectedness of this reality. Even when you feel these feelings of anxiety arising, immediately the one thing I do is out of the mind into the body, right? And when I say into the body, what that does is it allows you to ground yourself in the here and now, right? And sometimes all that takes is like, oh, where are my hands? And just like, oh, here are my hands. They're right here. Just like recognizing where your hands are. You can give yourself, you can body scan. So in the beginning of this live, and this is what I do in the beginning of all of my one-to-ones is a body scan from your toes to your heels to your knees, all the way up to your head, right? You scan your body, and that is, it's such a grounding feeling, and the more you do that, the more you can begin to expand and really be more and more present throughout your day, giving more awareness to what you're doing, truly having intimacy with the moment. Yes. um I'm just looking. I took a picture of the chat before the other one went down. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I'll be here for a little. Ronan, last time he said, I relate, I have some, but I don't have the urge to take them. That's what we were talking about with plant medicine. Yeah, plant medicine. Ethan, 100%, very seldom do I want things to alter my perception slash awareness. Yeah, just like quickly going to that, always make sure whatever you're doing, you feel called to it. When I say you must be called towards something, it's that feeling, right? It's a feeling. It's also there's like a full body awareness. There's a mind and body awareness where you can look at something and be drawn toward it. I don't know if you all have ever done a tarot reading or done it by yourself. I enjoy doing little tarot cards. These are my faves right here. I have another one too. But what you do truly, and if you all ever want to kind of just practice uh being in touch with your intuition in some way, this is one thing I do. There's so many ways, but this is one thing I do is I like to do tarot pick a card readings on YouTube. It's fun because I feel like it's like your own personal inspirational message to yourself. I usually like the ones that are are say a message to your spirit guides or a message from your higher self, things like that. And it will share a very unique message. Obviously it's on YouTube, so it's very general, not as specific. But what you do in the beginning is you pick a card and you just pick the card that you're drawn to the most. And some may say, oh my God, every card looks the same, right? And some readers will put a crystal on top or some object to help, satisfy the mind. But truly, you can honestly pick just a card with none of that on it and say, hey, what are you drawn towards? And and it's funny because like you'll pick a card and then it will tell you, there will be a story with all of the tarot, and there will be a story on how what you're going through and what you can do, and a message you'll truly need to hear. So something fun, and I'm kind of tapping into that, but primarily I love sharing messages on the present moment. What's your thoughts on astrology? Ooh, Honestly, I love astrology. I think astrology is really fun. I'm learning more and more about like the history on it and our connectedness to the stars. Um, and when you think about it, right, most of the time, those who enjoy astrology, they may ask, hey, what is your sun, your moon, and your rising? And what that means is that when you were born, this is just the what zodiacs we were in at that time. So, you may have been born in the season. What season? We're in Capricorn season right now, right? I don't know where the moon is right now, what zodiac, but let's just say the moon's in Gemini, right? So that's how we receive, you'll look up your astrology, things like that. And what I appreciate about astrology is that it helps me learn more about myself, more about my patterns, more about my tendencies. And it helps so that I can be in acceptance of who I am and how I engage with the world. Often we get in these places where we're comparing ourselves or we feel like, oh, I'm too late and I should be further here and there. And then oftentimes, you read your astrology and then you're just like, ah, okay, I accept myself fully. I see myself fully. It's more than just. I know a lot of people get caught up in like horoscopes and things like that, but astrology goes deep. It's a whole aspect and area of study. But I do genuinely enjoy it. And when we talk about intimacy with all things, right? Enlightenment is intimacy with all things and intimacy with the moment. It's interesting because I find that the more I dive deep into astrology, the more I find my acknowledgement of the stars, of the phases of the moon, the more I will do ceremony when there's a full moon, a new moon. And when I say ceremony, what I'll do is something simple, right? I'll go to the beach with my friends and we have a fire pit and we set our intentions, depending on if it's a full moon or a new moon, right? Um, and what we do is we will release, what we no longer want to our energy and our attention to be so absorbed in, right? Whether it's a person, whether it's an idea, a thought, emotion, pattern, just anything, whatever we would like to release, we write it down, release it in the fire. One time I have a journal and I like journaling. And I was ripping out pages and I put the entire journal into the fire and I released all my thoughts and my feelings, released it all. And what that helped was to open up space for a new reality, a new cycle, right? Every moment is honestly a new cycle. Every breath new cycle, right? And so the more and more we give awareness, the more and more we set intention, you know, the more we are inviting fulfillment into our life, presence into our life, heightened intuition, the easier it is to consciously manifest our world. And this is because we have given so much awareness to ourselves and to these patterns that these thoughts and emotions they're not getting in our way, right? We're not absorbing them, Just the fact that there's a thought within the mind that's there and we just choose to say, this is not in alignment with who I am. Just being simply aware of that, even if it continues to come back, that's a level of awareness that many who are so, I would say maybe the word is engulfed in this ego state, you know, they're not aware of. With the ego, it's complete just unconsciousness. You're not aware, right? It's just reactivity, reactivity, reactivity. And so living in a state like that is just a lot of suffering. It's a lot of fear. It's a lot of fear everywhere. Everything you do and what you say and how you feel. And so the more and more you just give awareness within the self, within what you do, you set intentions. You might have a goal, right? And you set an intention and you set that intention and be with yourself within that. And what's really, beautiful about this reality that we live in is that we'll set an intention and then we'll let it go. And oftentimes, what you'll recognize is that you did not have to strive or yearn to make it happen. What you'll recognize is that often it comes to you. You know, in a day, I will say, okay, my biggest intention today was I'm going to do a live stream. My biggest intention was I'm going to enjoy the day with my mom. We cooked dinner, we enjoyed the day, however we wanted to spend our day, right? And a lot of times, you might have specific. I'll give a more specific intention, like for example, maybe there's something you wanted to accomplish, like you wanted to send out an email, or you wanted to get some research done, some reading done. I'm just thinking of anything specific. You had to call someone. You let that go. Whatever it is that was your intention, you let it go. And oftentimes, naturally, you end up doing it without trying. There's no really need to like push yourself. There's not that just over like trying so hard, basically. And so the more we step into that, the more we're in this surrendered state, the more we're in this state of allowance. And that gives a very nice balance to the masculine and feminine energies that are within all of us, right? Each of us in our unique identity here, in these unique personalities that we have our own balance of masculine and feminine energies. And I'll tell you this, what I see right now is, there's a lot that's happening within society, but this having a solid practice of surrender and it's inviting in that aspect of feminine energy where you're surrendering to the moment and you're not trying to control so much, right? That is something that I feel is very much needed, just so that it allows us to receive more. That's coming to me, right? Our ability to receive. What does it mean to receive? We all know what it means to give. We're all like, hey, I'm a giver. But what's so funny within giving, there's also an aspect of receiving within giving. Because when you give, you feel good about giving, right? So what you are receiving is that feeling of goodness. And so the more and more we can recognize, fully what it means to receive, we are able to receive more from the universe, more from our inner voice, and more from our intuition, right? We truly know how to receive because receiving means surrender. Receiving means the I was going to say dissolution. I don't even know if that's a word, but dissolving. When your attachments dissolve, right? When they begin to dissolve, there's enough space for you to receive. And I think, that has a lot to do with what I'm sharing here is our ability to receive, and we balance that out with the masculine, which is a lot of the giving, which is that creation process where there's the building and there's that more logical side. How I see it is like masculine energy is a structure, and within that space there's a space for feminine energy to flow, right? And we all have that within us, and we can even see it in counterparts within the world. When we have couples, whether it be a hetero couple, a man and a woman, and the man has more masculine energy and the woman has more feminine, we could see that in those roles where the structure and the flow is put together. We see that in the animal kingdom. We see that in the plant kingdom. We see that in a battery, in a puzzle piece. I mean, it's everywhere, right? You know, some may say at this level, there's a distinction, and the more higher consciousness you have, it's really just one. But I would like to honor at the moment this level of consciousness where we are seeing this sense of separation. Um, Hello, up Zasan. I hope I said that right. Just know I recognize your username. So hello, hello. I just haven't said it out loud. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Let me know, everyone, if you have any questions, anything you'd like to chat about, anything you'd like to get off your chest, or maybe you are just questioning something or you're pondering something. Let me know. Let me know. But yeah, that's something that I have been giving awareness within myself is uh, when I am honoring the feminine energy within myself and the masculine energy within myself. And one of those things too, something that came up is acknowledging aspects of the self, right? So what I mean is, let's say there's a situation where you have conflicting feelings about something. Let's say, you know, you got an offer somewhere to work somewhere. And there's one aspect of you that is like, yeah, I want to do it. And there's another aspect of you that is a bit just like, kind of apprehensive, like, I'm not sure if I want to do that, right? What helps is honoring both aspects of yourself. Even an aspect of yourself is your inner child, right? Honoring that inner child, like just allowing yourself to be a kid and allowing all those thoughts and emotions to come up and allowing that to be, allowing it to surface instead of suppressing it. It was so funny. I saw a video today and it was this lady, she was speaking about how so many of us in our adulthood, we engage in the things that we wanted as a child, whether it was, oh, I've never been to Disney World, I want to go to Disney World. So we make sure we go to Disney World and we're like a kid. Anything that we missed out on as a kid, we end up like really, maybe our parents couldn't afford something for us while we were growing up. And now that we can afford it ourselves, we get it for ourselves. Or it doesn't even have to be in that area. It could just be like, hey, I want to, I want to. So I want to allow my inner child to be set free. Like today, I took a little break and I was like, oh, I'm going to watch Avatar The Last Airbender. Has anyone watched Avatar The Last Airbender? Let me know. That is my favorite show, and I love it. It's one of those shows I watched when I was a kid. I actually didn't finish it, but Avatar: The Last Airbender, there's so much underlying spiritual messages within that, and it's a kid show, and I love it. And it talks about the elements of nature, right? So we have there's airbenders, earthbenders, waterbenders, firebenders, right? And so and each person who bends, they have their own unique way of engaging with the world. My fave too. Wow, so many gems. Yes, Sean. Like I've learned so much from it. Like for example, this is something specific, right? Um, this stands out to me when Ta was teaching Aang how to earthbend. So Aang was having difficulty because when it comes to airbending is not very direct. It's more flowy, where when you bend air, you must manipulate it in a way where you're kind of going around things and you're going around the air. It's kind of like this Tai Chi type movement, but you're going around it, right? That's the best way I can explain it right now. And then with earth bending, it's direct. When you are bending earth, it's direct. And what Aang was having trouble with was being direct like that, being direct with earth. And so taught him that, and then he began to be able to bend earth more and more, right? And when we it's funny, that reminds me of astrology. When we tap into astrology, you think about it, right? Earth signs tend to be more direct in nature. When they're expressing themselves, whatever it might be, earth signs are more direct. Whereas when you have an air signs aren't as direct. Air signs, just this is more just in general, all right? Nothing specific, but more in general, where earth sign, might be, might kind of go around a certain idea or thought to get an answer or something like that. But yeah, Adrian, Merry Christmas, Marcy. Merry Christmas, Adrian. I am glad you are here, spending a little time here in the Here Now live stream. For anyone who just came, we're chatting about Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't know if any of you have seen this. If you have, let me know. And if you have seen it, let me know in the comments, all right? If you could choose what you'd like to bend, either earth, water, fire, or air, what would it be? All right. And this is outside of your own sign, right? So my sun sign is Libra, and that means I'm an air sign. So, if you were to bend any aspect of earth, what would it be? And so for me, it would be water. I loved Katara, and I loved the way she was bending water. Water bending just looks so cool. And what's really beautiful about water in the show specifically is how water was the only element that offered healing. So if you were a waterbender, you could heal people if they got hurt. So there was an episode where Zuko accidentally burned Toph's feet, and Katara used water bending to heal her. And water is healing. So if you've ever been to a beach, a lake, a large body of water, honestly, just sitting by it is healing. Just being by it is healing. I can tell you, Sean, I'm an earth sign, but I'd like to bend water. Is Cancer a water sign? Do you know Cancer is a water sign, Ronan? Yes. Yes, water bending's so cool. Earth sign, that's cool, Sean. Um, yeah, water is so healing. I There was this point in my life where I would wake up often to go to the beach, and I'd just go to watch the sunrise. I'd watch the sunrise, and I'd listen to the push and pull of the ocean. Sometimes I'd get in the ocean. Um and I've been doing, not as of late, but like in the last couple months, I actually have swimming flippers, and I'll go with my friends and we'll swim in the water. You just go way down deep and you see the fish swimming. There's a whole world down there. Water is so healing. It's so healing. This reminds me, I'm going to take a little sip of water right now. Yeah, has anyone here, do you ever find yourself escaping to water somehow? Or honestly, you can even be like, I'm going to take a bubble bath tonight. Like, that's something that I've been doing as of late, especially if there's like I would do like full moon ceremonies. I would I would take a bubble bath. Like, water is so healing, it's cleansing, it's purifying. There's such a power in it. And this is another way where we talk about enlightenment, is intimacy with all things, is the recognition of the healing power of water and what it does. Beach is chill. It's like the heartbeat of earth. Mm, very nice. Yeah. The beach is also so humbling, right? Or I would say the ocean is very humbling. It's such a large body of water, and it's like it will if you don't know how to swim, if you don't know how to just go with the flow and surrender to the push and pull of the waves, you end up like you end up being basically tumbled by the water. You might drown or something. I'm not saying anything. I don't want. You know what I mean. But you guys know what I mean, right? Like, you got to understand how to let go when you are in the ocean, and that is such a beautiful aspect. If anyone has ever, it could even be a pool. You just like float in the ocean. You just let go and you float. And um, there's something so healing about that, because I do that often whenever I'm at the beach, and the waves, like, they tend to be pretty, like, if it's a windy day, those waves are coming. And and as I'm floating in my mind, sometimes I'll recognize the fear, the thoughts that are like, oh my gosh, these waves are gonna like come all over my face, and I'm gonna have to like get up and like things like that. But when you release that completely, you're just moving with the wave, right? You might get a little water splattered on you. It's okay. Ultimately, though, you are on the surface of the water. You're chilling, chill vibes. I remember one time I was in the ocean and the waves were so choppy, and I ended up and I saw this bird. It was like, I think it was a seagull, but it was on the surface of the water chilling. I've never seen anything so chill on choppy water as that bird. I was inspired by that bird, I must say. I was inspired by that bird, and I was like, that's what it means to move with the flow of the universe. That's what it means to surrender and be in the state of contentment, no matter what the external is showing you, no matter what arises in the external. There's always this possibility of going with the flow, stepping into the path of flow. Yes. Um, any last questions? Hmm. Corey Blackwood, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. I'm glad you're here. Do we have any last questions? Take a little gulp of water. You know what I'll do too? For anyone who missed the beginning, I would like to do a little breath work exercise and an inner body awareness exercise with you all. Um, this is something that you can use throughout the day. Connecting with your breath is the most simplest way to get out of your head and into the present moment. Awareness of the body is awareness of the body is another great way to get out of your head and into this moment, grounded in this moment. So I'm gonna do that with you all. Quick question: what if there was no mind? What if there was no mind? The mind is, this is how I've understood it. And here's what I say. Anything that has to do with words, anything that has to do with consciousness is just words. It's not going to give you the exact answer. It's only pointing towards it. And so when you talk about no mind, right? No mind is when we are going beyond thought and beyond emotion, and we recognize that we are not this individual personality. We're not, I am not at my truest, I'm not this form, right? I'm not this individual. We are beyond it, right? Consciousness, right? And and we are not, and here's how I heard it so clearly. It's we are not that which arises within space, right? So but when we step into non-reactivity, we become aware of space, and awareness becomes aware of itself. Um, what if there were no mind? I'm not exactly sure how to answer that question. But all I know is that in the moments when I have found myself transcending thought and emotion, these emotions that we feel are our own, there is this sense of oneness and a sense of just contentment and just nowness, just sense of connectedness with all things. You know, I had such a divine moment, and it hasn't repeated, but such a divine moment where I truly experienced such a deeper aspect of the present moment and reality where I was no longer confined to the limits of this body, but I recognized myself as all things, consciousness. I was everything. I was literally just watching tennis. That's all I was doing, was watching tennis. And I was so relaxed during it. I enjoy tennis. I love tennis. And I was so relaxed during it that I find that that relaxation and that surrender is what opened up, what allowed my awareness to expand. And I was the present moment. There wasn't even an I. I'm saying I. but this is just an explanation. Like, I literally was the present moment. I felt like I could see around the corner because I was in a room, and I felt like I could see around the corner because I was all things, right? And this was not like, there's no psychedelics whatsoever. In fact, in fact, uh, I had been blocked from even receiving any form of psychedelic, like just within life circumstances. And it was so interesting how that moment, it just happened out of nowhere, and what felt like out of nowhere. And yeah, so that's what I have there. Interesting question. Also, I realized that I, as separate self, is the central of all suffering and fears. But how do you overcome the I? Yeah, it's so interesting. I was talking about that earlier. Is that the more separate we feel from this reality, um, the more separate we feel from all things, the more suffering we feel, right? How do you overcome the I? Release the need to overcome the I. Release the desire, release the expectation, be here fully, acknowledge this moment, acknowledge yourself fully, affirm to yourself that I am doing the best I can, I am here. Allow yourself to ground more and more and more into this moment, and notice what arises, and notice what's happening, right? So when you ask the question, how do I overcome the I? It's as if the I is the enemy, as if I is bad, but I is just an aspect of this reality. I is just an aspect of where we are right now. I like to say, when you're going through, you feel like there's a challenge in front of you, approach it as if you chose it. Approach it as if there was an aspect of you that specifically wanted you to experience that for the evolution of your own consciousness. And in that aspect, what you're doing is you're aligning with the moment. There's no resistance. You're saying, okay, I agree with this moment, right? And so quote unquote overcoming the I is agreeing with the moment fully. And often over agreeing with the moment fully just means releasing the idea that you must overcome the I, because you don't need to. Enjoy this moment. We're here. Have fun, play in this world of form, enjoy this moment. And the more you do, the more you'll find yourself living deeply, right? You're not looking for a sense of desire in external things, in like buying certain things to enhance identity, achieving certain goals to enhance identity. The more and more you come within, the more you release the need to overcome the I. Even this idea that the ego is the enemy, let that go, right? The more and more you come to one, you recognize that you are transcending it. You're beyond. And then you will see this individual self, this I, in a new perspective. You will use thought and emotion as a tool rather than being so absorbed in it that it is controlling you, that is, you are reactive. You'll find that you are more responsive to this world, that you have more space within, you're recognizing the gaps of space within thoughts, the gaps of space throughout the day. You're there fully, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. It's always with you. Awareness, right? You know, ego's not bad. It's just unconscious. There's no real true there's no real true practice of attachment, the non-attachment. What you can do is observe the mind. Practice non reactivity towards thoughts and emotions. And what that allows you to see is what suffering does to you, right? When you ask the question, like, how do I overcome the mind? Immediately, this idea of suffering begins. And it could be small. Like, we might think of suffering as like, suffering is like this, this. whole catastrophic event. No, no, no. Suffering can be something like you're at a red light and you're like, oh, I don't want to be at a red light. Like those are tiny bits of suffering. We don't have to experience that. We can just be there, you know? And so even the question of overcoming the I, which is just a part of the now, it creates that feeling of suffering because you are denying an aspect of what you are experiencing. You're saying, this moment is not right. This moment isn't as it should be. It must be overcome. You know, all like I said, so much of healing has to do with aligning with the moment, agreeing with the moment. And the more and more we have great questions like that, Corey, um, the more and more we'll see how everything ties into aligning with the present moment. You know, you might hear like, "Hey, align with the moment," but you may not know what that looks like. You may not know what that feels like because the mind, it gets so attached to a certain thought that it doesn't want to let go. There's also a fear of letting go, and that's just the ego. It's just the ego just needing a sense of identity. And that's why when we are in awareness with non reactivity, I don't know if you all have ever heard the no one or to be no one or no thing, but that is what happens when you're in this state of non-reactivity towards thoughts and emotions. Ultimately, you're in the state of no one, no thing. You are beyond the individual, the I, and the personality. It's another level of awareness, right? A quote that sticks with me: things don't happen to me, they happen for me. There we go, Sean. Yes. That is how, whenever you continue to affirm that to yourself, that is how you are aligning with the present moment, right? Suffering is also resistance, right? That's another word to describe it. And so when we say, oh, something is happening to me, that creates resistance. But if you say it's happening for me, resistance dissolves, and then you are aligning and you're like, oh, this is happening for me. Oh, I feel a block. All right, this block is actually happening for me, and it's protecting me and redirecting me. Gratitude. Thank you. Thank you. Gratitude. The grounding power of gratitude, right? Dina, thank you for coming. I love you too. Everything is meant to bring something into awareness. Everything is meant to bring something into awareness. You know, what came to mind when that came up is how it's like there's this phrase, and it's like the idea of bringing more consciousness into this world, right? So when we have moments like this where we're in the space and we're chatting about higher consciousness ideas, where we're coming back to the self and we're talking about the present moment and we're talking about those things like that, what we're doing is inviting more and more consciousness into this reality. And ultimately, what's happening is consciousness is becoming aware of itself, right? This is what happens when this idea of the I, it dissolves and we become one with all. And then consciousness is aware, like, this is me. Everything is me. Oh my gosh, there is no I. It's just a bit of an illusion. But you know what? You know what? We can have fun with that illusion. We don't need to see it as an enemy. We can play in the world of form. So yeah, everything is meant to bring something into awareness. That's what we're doing now, right? We're whether when it comes to our healing process specifically, we might bring conditioned patterns into awareness, right? That's a huge, I mean, that is healing, right? Because I like to say different things, like healing is letting go of the past, and healing is releasing the past. And oftentimes what that means is releasing our how we have identified with the past. You know, often whenever you notice, like for example, you've gone through a breakup, many times what people do after that is they create a new self. You change your wardrobe, you change your mindset, you change your hair, you change your environment, ultimately what you're doing is you are letting go of the past and creating a new current reality. And so it's allowing you to bring new aspects of the self into reality, and you're healing. You're healing yourself. You're seeing and recognizing that you are far more than your past self. You're far more than 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 your life situation. And and validating and showing yourself like, yeah, I can see myself in a new light. What's that book by Dr. Joe Dispenza? Such a great book. It's Changing the Way You See Yourself, something like that. It's a great book. Has anyone read that book? Let me know. I'm actually reading. I haven't read it in a little bit, but Becoming Supernatural, super awesome book by Dr. Joe Dispenza. But yeah, indeed, indeed, indeed. I'd like to share two with you all. I'll be back on Tuesday, same time, 6:30. Um, let me see. Nathan Harris. Hello, Merry Christmas. I want to get back on track for the new year. Hello, Nathan. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming, spending a little bit of your Christmas time here. I actually hope, I'm wearing my Christmas PJs. Hope you guys are enjoying the day. You have your Christmas PJs on, or however you celebrate the day. Corey Blackwood. I've heard once that life is just lifing, and we are it itself. I felt that. I felt that. You said if that makes sense. Oh yeah, I felt that. There's this quote by Eckhart Tolle, and he's like, "You don't have a life. You are life." Whew. And that is something that is felt. It's something that is beyond the mind. Like the mind trying to make sense of it, it's only going to dig us deeper into this infinite just hole of trying to figure things out. That's why it's important for us to let go, and that's why it's important for us to release and let go, and what we will experience, that we are life itself. It's an awareness that we are life itself. We are the present moment. We are the flow. Going with the flow means recognizing that you are the flow. So you're letting go. Any El Chico. Oh, what's this? The uva grape. Merry Christmas. A good tip to be good at metacognition. The uva grape. Hello, Merry Christmas, and indeed, metacognition. Being beyond the mind. Um, El Chico, any future goals for yourself? Any future goals? Honestly, one of my biggest intentions is really specifically to continue doing these Here Now live streams with y'all. I enjoy them so much. I enjoy all the comments, the questions. I appreciate y'all, like, being in a space where constantly we're talking about these aspects of reality. Each and every one of us are having a shift in consciousness in this very moment. In this very moment, and it allows me to connect with all of you. So that is like one of my goals, to continue this and to continue learning and sharing more, and really living deeper into my purpose of being here. I recognize through having many conversations with my friends, specifically my friend El Chico. We talk about, where life is heading, and if we're not prepared for what may happen in the future, we'll find ourselves not grounded, and we'll find ourselves in a space of so much fear. And that's why right now I recognize the importance of sharing, being a teacher of presence. And even though I'm sharing this with you, all of you here are also teachers of presence. A teacher of presence is just one who embodies presence, right? I may right now just be doing it formally, right? but every single one of us, we're bringing more and more consciousness into this world so that we recognize that when we're in the is of what looks like chaos that is surrounding us, we know that we can step back into our being and recognize the peace that we are. We acknowledge the space between thought and emotion so we're not absorbed in it and reactive to it, and we can live out our purpose fully. Each and every one of us have a purpose, especially if you are here right now. The fact that you are here, the fact that you resonate with these topics, the fact that you are drawn to this space says says to me that you are one of the many who are meant to bring light into this world. You are one of the many who is meant to bring consciousness into this world, and continue to share it as you can. And honestly, you don't need to speak it. All you need to do is be it. Just that. That's it. I don't know if any of you have ever had an experience where someone who has just said, "Wow, your energy is great." You may not have said anything, maybe you laughed, maybe you were just, you were just peace, and someone just complimented you and complimented your light. Like, that's it. You are embodying presence, and the more and more we continue that, the more and more we come together as one, the more and more we're building community, and we can understand what it means to let go and surrender, and allow others to help us. That's a topic that I'll get into um, more and more in the future. My thoughts are everywhere. Damn, even gearing that is his hardest to comprehend. Honestly, it's like, yeah, it's like this is why like we it's not necessary to comprehend with the mind, because the mind, thoughts can be limited. Remember, any explanation, anything you hear is just pointing towards it. It's not it, right? And that's why there's this practices of meditation. So another goal is like I will be creating a lot more meditations to help us all like get into that state, very specific. Travel, things like that. Those are other goals that I have. We just have to feed our bodies and minds right. Indeed, Ronan. And you know what we feed it with? Awareness. Awareness. You feed it with more awareness, you know what you need. Lena, we enjoyed listening and connecting with you. Woo. Thank you. I love you. Corey, last question. Was there an unhealthy pattern that constantly kept occurring in your life? And what was the moment that fully brought that into your awareness? Mm. Was there an unhealthy pattern that constantly kept occurring in your life? Yeah. Oh man, indeed. It's just being a human in this world where we're surrounded with all of these distractions. I would say, let's see, an unhealthy pattern that constantly kept occurring in my life. I think one that arises is like overthinking, and overthinking that ends up creating feelings of anxiety, and it doesn't mean I quote unquote overcame it. What it means is that I have actively learned how to approach it, and how to handle it, and how to nurture it. And I improve my relationship with it, and I do it every day. It's a big part of what I'm sharing, and that pattern within myself has really stopped me a lot from actually stepping into certain goals that I have set for myself, or certain fun ideas, or creative projects I may have wanted to start, things like that. Um, and that's a lot of where my focus lies whenever I'm in meditation, is being in that state of non-reactivity. So definitely learning how to handle, like, one of those things are like believing the first thought that comes to mind, like, holy, you know, like often, the reason why we're feeling these feelings of anxiety, these feelings of depression, is because we give too much attention, and we absorb and feed too much of the thoughts that just arise within our minds. Not like recognizing, like, yo, these thoughts aren't actually mine. Like, I might be absorbing these thoughts from like a video I just saw, or a person that I was just around, or people, a group of people that I'm with, like not even recognizing, oh my gosh, these are not my thoughts, you know? And I feel like that constant being sucked into that and sucked into that is so draining. It's so draining. So that is like one pattern um, that I feel like um, I have improved on. What was the moment that fully brought that into your awareness? I think it was several moments. It's not one big moment. You know what's so funny is like I get a lot of questions of like, what was the one moment that you felt this sense of like wisdom or enlightenment or something like that? And it's just like, every moment is just an accumulation and it just never ends. I'm a human too. There's moments where I react. There's moments where I believe the first thought that comes to mind. What's most important is that you are aware of how to approach these reactive, whenever a reaction arises, you know what to do. And the more and more you do that, the more and more you are inviting presence into your life. You're inviting fulfillment in your life. The more and more you are waking up fulfilled. Sometimes I freeze during public speaking, and sometimes I don't, and IDK why. Mm. Public speaking too is. I can understand how that is quite scary, right? You're speaking, it's all you and you. You're speaking to a large group of people. Um, and yeah, sometimes you don't know why. Hey, there's several things that it could be, and often when we are too in our minds, like too in our head, it's one of those things that comes back to this idea of like being too engulfed within yourself and just the individual. One thing I like to remind myself is like, what am I sharing and who am I helping? And it's like the uva grip. Like you can ask yourself that, what am I sharing and who am I helping? And really step out of being this individual. Like, step out of of like that aspect of being so self-conscious, right? And recognizing like whatever I'm sharing is for the greater whole. Whatever I'm sharing is beyond me. And it allows you really to step more and more into the present moment because you let go of how others are perceiving you. Often that's what happens in public speaking. One thing I would share with that is like take time, get into a meditative state and envision yourself a public speaker and envision yourself being fully there. Envision yourself in a flow state, full fulfillment, enjoying what you're doing, acknowledging that the reward is in the moment. Even as I speak now, whenever you see my videos, like our words, our voice, it's a vibration and it's healing. And certain words and sentences, what we're putting out, we have the ability to heal ourselves, right? Just as we have the ability, like certain words we say, they cause disease, right? Dis-ease, the continuous thinking of these like negative patterns, on the other side of the spectrum, we have the ability to heal ourselves. And consider when you're speaking, how that reward is in the moment, how that reward is healing you, and how those words are also healing others. I've recognized that overthinking causes me to self sabotage sometimes. Oh my gosh, yeah. Talk about self sabotage. And what's so funny is like when you step out of those moments of like overthinking, you say to yourself, like, I cannot believe I was overthinking about that. I cannot believe it. One thing I do is I know the importance of laughing at our suffering. We must laugh. Like so, if ever I laugh or something like that, it's not because it's nothing to take personal, but it's more of like that feeling of recognizing that every single time you go beyond the suffering, you feel the lightness, and you can't help but laugh because in you recognize like, wow, I cannot believe I was in that space, in that limited space. Like, oh my gosh. And like Laughter breaks through the ego. Laughter breaks through the limitedness. Laughter breaks through the separation. Laughter opens up space for us to feel the oneness, the interconnectedness with all. And that's why, certain comedians, that's why, comedians are important to make jokes about, a lot of topics that tend to be so serious. They tend to put us so much in the ego state, and then we take everything personal, and everything everybody says is personal, and everyone's offended everywhere. and and this is why we need comedy, we need humor to like dissolve that, to break it, so that we can step into a higher sense of awareness where we're like, hey guys, where we don't have to we don't have to be so identified in problems, and you'll recognize too, the more you sit in non-reactivity with thought and emotion, you'll be like, the problems that are arising are really just our perceptions about reality in the world. Ultimately, at a higher state of consciousness, there is no problem. The problems are created by the mind. The problem is the thought. That's what it is. The problem is the thought. And the more and more we acknowledge that, we recognize that, we step into that vibration, we are expanding our awareness. Those are good reminders when it comes to those moments of overthinking, self sabotage, things like that. the way you spoke about the way you spoke about getting caught up in thoughts that aren't yours, I felt that. Feels so icky. Yeah. What's so crazy too is that often we're not fully aware when it's not like truly ours. And even I might ask myself the question, like, what thought is truly ours? I don't know, right? That's like, even when I share this, it's not like my teachings, right? It's just the way I choose to express these ideas to the world. And so what that does, that awareness, like, it allows me as a teacher of presence, as a guide and a mentor,